Now let's work on the database part. You should already have created the database in PHPMyAdmin. That was back in lesson 2 in the lecture videos on Ajax and JSON. So if you've done that correctly, you should have a shared database with a users table and a username hash email role. You should also have created a database user named share that has permission to select, insert, update, and delete from the share database. So let's go ahead and go back to our database class, which is just stubbed right now. And we're going to need some constants in order to connect to the database. So const db server is 127.0.0.1, which is the same as the localhost. And db user, that's going to be the share account you created. And db password share. And finally, db database is share. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a static method for connecting to the database. And we're going to have a static property for that connection that holds that connection. And that way, no matter how many share database objects you create, they're all going to use the same one connection. So we'll open it once. The first time we need it, we leave it open while the rest of the page is being cooked up. So multiple database queries can reuse that connection. And then at the end, when we're done with the page, then we're going to close that one connection. So it's a little more efficient than having separate database requests. So we're going to go ahead and create a private static variable called db, and we're going to set that to null to start with. And then we're also going to create a static connect function. And this is going to get called the first time we try to access data. And actually, we're going to call this method every time we try to access data, but the first thing we're going to do is check if empty share database : $db. That means this is the first database request, and so we're going to initialize database db to be our new database connection. Sorry, that should be shared database. Okay, so server and user and share database password, and finally share database : database. So that makes the connection if you don't have one already, and then we're just going to return the connection. And for some reason I have the wrong number of spaces here. It should be 4. So actually, let me delete that and type it back in, and that will reformat all my code. This is all one long line. And then we're going to return share database DB. So it creates a new connection if there isn't one. And then at the end of the page load, we're going to create a destruct method. Which is going to get called for each object that goes away. So we'll say if not empty share database : DB, then what we're going to do is close it. And also set it to null so that we only do that once. So that handles the actual connection part. Then we need the logic for the query, and there's two functions that we have to implement for registration: looking up user and adding a user. So lookup user is going to be a select statement, and it's going to use the username as a key value to retrieve the right row. So let's write the select. And this username is coming from the user via a form, so we want to guard against SQL injection by using MySQL real escape string to sanitize this. So let's start with getting the database. So that will return the existing connection or create a new one. And then we're going to set safe username equal connection pointer MySQL real escape string of username. Then the query is going to be So the query is going to be select, and then I'm going to explicitly list the columns that I want here. So I want username and email and hash and role. From the users table, where username equal, and then I'm going to put single quotes around safe username. And that should be the query that I need. So let's go ahead and send it to the database. And we're going to convert the result into a numeric array and return that. So return result pointer fetch array MySQLi numeric. Actually, I think I'm going to use MySQLi associative, so I don't have to keep remembering the order of these columns. And so that should be it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a breakpoint in, and then I should already be calling that function. So let's reload just to make sure we're starting from a clean setup. And I'm going to hit sign up, and I'm going to enter username, email address, password, confirm, and go back here, enable debugging, and hit OK. So now we can step through this and make sure everything's working correctly. So I'm going to step here. So we have a connection, and we've escaped the username so that it's safe for SQL. So we have a query, which looks correct. Okay, so our result is an array of stuff, which is good. And then, oh, I have an extra return statement in here somehow. But I'll go ahead and hit OK, delete that, turn off debugging, and let's try this again here. So let's see what's going on. On the JavaScript side, when I click the OK button, I should get there. Okay, but I don't seem to be getting there. Let's try reloading. Okay, so I'm not getting to this callback. Let's trace through the register function and see what's going on there. So in doRegister, actually let's take a look at the network traffic here as well before we do that. So I am calling doRegister, and I'm passing in the form data correctly. And the response that I'm getting is the error uncaught exception. Fatal error, uncaught error, call to private share database destruct from context user. Oh, user.php line 87, line 78. So user line 78. Right. So basically, I think I didn't do the destructor right. Yeah, this needs to be public here so that it can get called by the code that cleans up the object. And now it works. Okay, so I've already created that username, so I got an error coming back. So let's try a new one. And that works. So I'm logged in as Mark G. If I go back to the database and browse, so I'll go to share and then structure and then browse. So here's my users table, and I've created some test ones before. Oh, so I haven't actually implemented the code that adds the user yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's add user, and this one's going to use the insert into statement. So I'll start by copying this code because it's all the same. Except this time, username, email, and hash are all coming from the user, so I'm going to safe escape all of those. Username, email, hash, email, hash. So those are all safe now. And the query this time is going to be insert into, and then I need the table that I'm inserting into, which is users. And then I give a set of column names. So username, email, and hash, and role. And then I need to give the values that I'm inserting. So I want the username, email, hash, and then for role, I'm going to put the string user. And then here I'm going to fill in the variables, safe username, safe email, safe hash. And I'm actually creating this hash myself, so I don't need to escape this one. That's not user supplied input, so it doesn't need to be escaped. And then this is just a constant value. So that looks good. And then here, I'm not actually retrieving any results from the database, so I can just execute that and not return anything. And that should be my add user function. So let's go ahead and go back, and we'll log out, sign up, try OK. And now, if I go back and reload, I have a new user row. So I've filled in the username, the hashed password, email, and the role. So that actually should be it for the registration. Now, I probably want to clear this dialog every time it pops up. So let's go ahead and initialize that dialog just as a cleanup thing. So first, let's clear all the inputs. So that should clear the values of all inputs. Let's give that a shot. So we'll cancel and sign up. Good. So now that clears all of the inputs. And then we also want to clear the error. So let's try that again. So there's an error message. Good, so we're completely clear. And we could implement a feature to make these sticky across login attempts, but I think we're okay for that for now. Now there's a security issue here. If I try to access this page over unsecured connection, then I get correct behavior, but I'm sending the password across clear text, across the network in clear text, which is not what you want. So you want to make sure that the password is only ever sent across a secure connection. And so we'll deal with that issue in a separate video. But other than that, I think registration is looking good.